Good morning, everybody. It's your favorite aspiring revolutionary here, a wandering author, reminding you that we are all the authors of our own lives. As always, my message remains the same: spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. And today we are going over question number 8 from the Summa Theologica, the existence of God and things. So, remember last time we spoke about the concept of infinity. And as St. Thomas puts it, the infinite belongs everywhere and is in all things. So we must now turn our attention to this matter and ask if it is true of God through 4 points of inquiry. 1. Whether God is in all things. 2. Whether God is everywhere. 3. Whether God is everywhere by essence, power, and presence. And 4. Whether to be everywhere belongs to God alone. So let's begin with Article 1. Whether God is in all things. Several objections are posed to this question, such as how what is above all things is not in all things. But God is above all things according to Psalm 112, verse 4, the God is high above all nations. An additional view suggests that what is in something is contained by it, yet God is not contained by things, rather they are contained by Him. So like Augustine says, in Him things are, rather than He is in any place. Another point of contention is that the more powerful an agent, the more extended its action. And since God is the most powerful agent, shouldn't His actions extend far beyond Him? And wouldn't that make it unnecessary for Him to be in all things? Finally, we must take into account the demons. And as it is stated in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14, there is no fellowship between light and darkness. So mustn't God not be in all things? What that's saying is, if are not the demons away from God's presence, so at least wouldn't He not be there? On the contrary, though, things are where they operate. And Isaiah 26:12 states, Lord, Thou hast wrought all works for us. Thus God is in all things. St. Thomas specifies that God is not an essence or accident in things, but is present as an agent is present to that upon which it works. End quote. Agents are joined to that where it acts, like how in Aristotle's physics it is said that what is moved and the mover must be joined together. God is the foundation of being by His essence, so created beings must be His effect. To ignite is the effect of fire. God's effect not only exists at the inception of creation, but through its preservation. Light remains in the air as long as it is illuminated by the sun. Likewise, as long as creation has being, God must be present, because He's the one that sustains it. Though God is above all things, He is the cause of all and in all. Physical things contain what is in them, yet spiritual things contain what they are in. The soul contains the body. Nothing is distant from God, yet in demons there is the nature of God, but also sin's deformity, which is not of God. God is only absolutely in that which is not deformed. So our next point of question is whether God is everywhere. Some may claim God is not everywhere because that would mean He is in every place. And God transcends places altogether. As Boethius states, incorporeal things are not in a place. They may say time is to succession as place is to permanence. And since one movement cannot exist at different times, neither can one part of permanence be in every place. The divine being is permanent, thus God is not in many places. They even try saying what is holy in one place cannot be in another, and God has no parts. Therefore, if He is in one place, He must be all there and not elsewhere. On the contrary, though, it is written in Jeremiah 23:24, I fill heaven and earth. St. Thomas answers that being in a place can be understood in 2 ways. By way of other things, such as how something can be said to be in another, or by a way proper to place. This is how things that are placed are in a place. And God fulfills both these senses of place, and is everywhere. He is in all things and gives them being, and God fills all places, but not like bodies, which exclude the co-presence of others. So, you could put a box somewhere, and you can't put something else where that box is. But since God is bodiless, He is also where that box is. Incorporeal entities are not in a place like physical matter, but as energy. There are 2 types of indivisible. One is part of a continuous permanent thing, like an atom or a second, as in the measurement of time, and these cannot be in many parts of place. The other type of indivisible is not part of a continuum, but is its power, like God, angels, and souls. Thus, according to its power, it can be in many or all places. Question 8, Article 3. Whether God is everywhere by essence, presence, or power. Now, opponents claim the existence of all things, the existence of God in all things, is not by way of essence, presence, and power. That is because whatever is by essence in something is in it essentially, meaning it's an integral part of it. But God is not essentially in things, since he does not belong to the essence of anything. To be present in anything means not to be absent from it. This is what is meant when it is said that God is in things by his essence. Thus, the same is meant by his essence and presence. God's power is the principle of all things, so likewise they say of his knowledge and will. However, it is not said that he is in things by knowledge and will, therefore neither is he present by his power. Finally, grace is a perfection added to the substance of a thing, so other perfections are likewise added. If God is in something by way of grace, it seems that according to every perfection there ought to be a special mode of God's existence in things. On the contrary, though, the Canticle of Canticles, or the Song of Songs, says that God by a common mode is in all things by his presence, power, and substance. Still, he is said to be present more familiarly, like something that is familiar, in some by way of grace. St. Thomas answers that God is said to be in a thing in two ways. The first is by way of an efficient cause. This is how he is in all things created by him. In another way, he is in things as the object of operation is in the operator. And this is proper to the operations of the soul. This is how the thing known is in the knower, or the thing desired is in the one who desires. It is in this second way that God is especially in the rational creatures. And begin quote, and because the rational creature possesses this prerogative by grace, he is said to be thus in the saints by grace. End quote. We can look at human affairs to see how he is in other things. If we take the example of a king, he is said to be everywhere in his kingdom by way of his power, though he is not in every location. Again, a thing is said to be in other things by its presence, when they are subject to its inspection. This is like how things are present to someone in a house, though they are not in every room by substance. Lastly, a thing is said to be by way of substance or essence in that place in which its substance may be. The Manichaeans said spiritual or incorporeal things were subject to the divine power, but that corporeal things were under the power of a contrary principle. Quote, against these it is necessary that God is in all things by his power. End quote. The opposition claimed he was in all things, but that divine providence did not extend to these lower beings. Quoting the book of Job 22:14, he walketh about the poles of the heavens, and he doth not consider our things. End quote. Against these it is necessary to say that God is in all things by his presence. Others have said that all things are subject to the providence of God, but all things are not immediate creations of him. He created the first creatures, and these created the others. Against these it is necessary to say that he is in all things by his essence. Start quote. Therefore God is in all things by his power, inasmuch as all things are subject to his power. He is by his presence in all things, as all things are bare and open to his eyes. He is in all things by his essence, inasmuch as he is present to all as the cause of their being. End quote. In 8, Article 4, whether to be everywhere belongs to God alone. So, opponents may say that it does not appear that being everywhere belongs to God alone, because according to Aristotle, the universal is everywhere, as is primary matter, and neither of these are God. Furthermore, in the Book of Wisdom, chapter 11, verse 21, it says the universe is constituted in number, so must not there be a number which is in the whole universe and is thus everywhere. The universe itself is a type of whole perfect body, and since the universe is everywhere, being everywhere must not belong to God alone. If a body were infinite, nothing would exist outside of it, so to be everywhere does not appear to God alone. Augustine also said, the soul feels where it sees, and lives where it feels, and is where it lives. Yet the soul sees the entire heavens, so must not the soul be everywhere also? On the contrary, Ambrose says, Who dares to call the Holy Ghost a creature, who in all things and everywhere and always is, which assuredly belongs to the divinity alone? St. Thomas's conception of God is that to be everywhere and primarily is proper to him. To be everywhere primarily is something you say of a whole and not of a part. If something were everywhere according to its parts, it would not be everywhere primarily. What belongs to a part does not belong to it primarily. For example, if a man has brown hair, brownness belongs primarily to the hair and not to the man. Something is everywhere absolutely when it is not an accident, such as how a loaf of bread would be if nothing else existed. In other words, something must be everywhere absolutely when it must be that way, and this properly belongs to God alone. Even if an infinite number of places existed, it would be necessary that God be in them all, for all things exist by him. The universal and primary matter are everywhere, but not according to the same mode of existence. Numbers are an accidental quality, and do not exist in a place. The universe is everywhere, but in parts and not absolutely. And if an infinite body existed, it would also be everywhere by its parts. So, we can see through these 4 points of inquiry that God is everywhere, and that he is the only being who is everywhere by way of substance, meaning he is there primarily. And that's it for question number 8. My question for you guys is always the same. What are y'all doing in order to inspire, uplift, and empower your local community today? Because this world isn't changing unless we all do our parts, and you can count on me to do mine daily. Till next time, God bless.